You ever have one of those days where you think, surely it can't get dumber than this, and then just like that, the universe says, hold my beer. Yeah, well, that's how this whole mess started. One minute I was nailing the last cedar shingle onto the porch of my father's old lakeside lodge, feeling like I was finally making peace with a lot of things: my dad's death, my time overseas, all the years I spent drifting, and never really knowing what to do with this place he built with his bare hands. And the next, I was standing toe-to-toe with the most power-hungry HOA president you'll ever meet, fighting not just for a building, but for the last real piece of home I had left. The lodge sits tucked in a stand of maples right on Lake Merriden's sun, spilling across the deck. The kind of place you go when you're tired of the world shouting at you. I'd spent a year bringing it back from the brink, new joists, stone fireplace, the whole deal, not for profit, not for show, but as a retreat for veterans like me who needed somewhere quiet, somewhere to remember who they are. Word spread first among old buddies like Jonas, then their friends, then therapists, until suddenly I was fielding calls from strangers just looking for a weekend of peace. I never charged more than it cost to keep the lights on. Wasn't about money. But you know how it goes. Sanctuary for some is a threat to others. On this particular morning, I was waiting on Jonas and his son to roll in, thinking about grilling and skipping rocks, when I saw her 50-ish, stiff as rebar hair like a golden helmet, and an expression you only see on people who iron their pajamas. Karen Worthington, president of the Blue Crest Bay HOA, standing just across the line on HOA turf, clipboard in hand, staring like she was memorizing every stick and stone. I gave her a polite nod. She glared, scribbled something, and spun around like I'd personally offended her sense of order. Didn't think much of it. My land's been in the county rolls since the 70s, way before Blue Crest Bay was even a twinkle in some developer's eye. No shared utilities, no covenants. My mailbox stands alone at the end of a gravel drive, a little middle finger to conformity. But then the envelope came heavy gold, embossed full of that flowery HOA passive-aggressive language. Dear Mr. Landis, pursuant to a unanimous vote, your guest lodge has been designated a provisional community amenity. I almost spit out my coffee. They were pleased to inform me my own lodge was now community property, and expected me to hand over keys, documents, and show up for a handover reception like I was supposed to thank them for stealing my house. I drove to the HOA office the next morning, ready to laugh this off as some kind of mix-up. Place looked more like a day spa for lawyers. Cushy chairs, fake ferns. Karen sat at the head of a conference table, smiling the way dentists do when they're about to drill without numbing you up. I dropped the letter in front of her and said, "You don't own my land." She gave me that look, condescending, patient, like she was talking to a lost child. "Not yet," she said. I had to check if I was on a hidden camera show. "This isn't about ownership," she said. "It's about community contribution, civic responsibility." I told her flat out, my land isn't part of your HOA, and you don't get to vote on what I do with it. Her smile never wavered, but her eyes sharpened. "We've had legal reviews. You should be honored. You're a veteran, think of it as patriotic." Like that was supposed to make me roll over. I walked out expecting that'd be the end of it. Maybe an awkward holiday wave from across the lake. I was wrong. The next letter was from a law office, her late husband's no less, saying I had to turn over keys in the spirit of cooperative enhancement or face administrative enforcement. That phrase alone nearly gave me a hernia. I called Hank, my lawyer, former Marine, the kind of guy who puts the fear of God into anyone with a title. He fired off a response packed with more documentation than the Library of Congress and ended it with a warning that bordered on poetic violence. That should have killed it. But the next week I came home to find my only access road barricaded with cones and maintenance signs, work orders signed by the HOA, not the county. The county had no idea. Turns out they'd hired some guy to stand around and look official. "They're paying me to be here," he shrugged. I dragged 2 propane tanks a half-mile down a muddy path that night, cussing every step. Next day, a notice was taped to my front door, all legalese about non-certified facilities and public welfare, threatening to shut the lodge down for fire safety violations. Never mind, I'm not even under their rules. I called Hank. He laughed so hard he had to mute himself. Then 2 clipboard-wielding minions showed up, tried to inspect the lodge. I told them they had 30 seconds to get off my property or start learning how a shovel works. Then came the zoning complaint filed with the county claiming my lodge encroached 23 feet onto HOA land. They even doctored the plat maps, shifting the line just enough to make it look like I was squatting on their turf. I'd walked those boundaries 100 times. My father had sunk iron stakes in concrete, but the complaint was enough to freeze the lodge. No guests, no retreats, no peace. I spent a night by the lake skipping stones, watching the empty lodge lights flicker, wondering how one control freak with a pen could do what combating grief never could, make me feel helpless. Here's the twist. While I was out visiting a buddy in the hospital, Karen and her crew broke in, chained my gate, put up a sign declaring the property under HOA oversight, and moved in like they were staging a coup. When I got back, there were strangers grilling on my deck, drinking my whiskey. My dad's lantern shoved in a corner. Military plaques tossed aside. I rolled video, called the sheriff, but until the zoning mess cleared, it was civil, not criminal. You know how it goes. Hank filed for an emergency injunction. I gathered everything: surveys, drone footage, affidavits from a land surveyor buddy. The real breakthrough came when an old Army friend in zoning leaked me emails, Karen conspiring with county officials, talking about getting the reassignment processed before I got home, assuming I wouldn't fight. That was gasoline on the fire. Hank turned it into a criminal complaint: fraud, trespassing, property theft, civil conspiracy. The press caught wind. Headline read, HOA invades Veterans Lake Lodge. Suddenly, neighbors, even a state rep, started calling. Bluecrest doubled down, held parties, renamed the place, even spray-painted my mailbox. I slept in my truck that week, watching and waiting, documenting every move. Finally, it all went to court. Judge Dorsey, tough as nails. Zero patience, looked at Hank's binder, at the GPS-tagged maps and photos, at Karen's own words: move fast before the county intervenes. He's ex-military, not litigious, and ruled on the spot. Vacate the property in 48 hours, no further HOA action. The sheriff escorted them out, but the war wasn't over. Within days, I was buried under nuisance complaints: chimney too high, fence too long, grass not green enough. Standard HOA paper warfare. But the press kept digging, and soon ex-HOA board members came out with receipts, payments to county officials, secret lists of conversion potential properties, all signed by Karen. We filed a full conspiracy case. In deposition, Karen squirmed, denied requested breaks, then finally admitted she may have misunderstood jurisdictional boundaries. Her own treasurer turned on her in court, providing emails and even recordings of Karen laughing about how no one's going to fight us. The jury didn't buy any of it. The judge hammered down full damages, $650,000 HOA to pay Karen personally liable, her assets frozen. When she was cuffed in court, you could have heard a pin drop. Outside, I told the press this wasn't about land, it was about power and how easily you can lose your rights if nobody's watching. I rebuilt the lodge, rehung my dad's nameplate, put up a new sign: private property by invitation only. First thing Jonas did when he came back was crack a beer on the deck and say, "You know, this place feels even quieter than before." Damn right it does. Bluecrest Bay got a new board, new rules, and a whole lot of eyes on them. Karen got barred from any civic role in the state. As for me, I kept doing what my father wanted, keeping the place open for people who need it. Every scar on the walls just makes it more real. A month later, a Marine with one leg stood on my dock, looked across the water, and said, "It's safe here, right?" I nodded. "Safer than anywhere else, this side of the wire." That's all anybody wants, really. The Karens of the world don't get it. Property isn't power, it's memory. And next time someone thinks about stealing a piece of that, maybe they'll think twice. So here's what I want to know. Where do you draw the line between community and control? Was I right to fight? Or is there such a thing as too stubborn for your own good? Drop your thoughts below. Let's see whose side you're on.